Ohio State Senator Franklin Foyle. How's it going, man?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thank you for having me this morning.
No, glad to have you on this morning and glad to be talking about what we're talking about because it feels like we're finally getting somewhere. When it comes to the level of respect paid and intentionality towards our veterans, I feel like the needle's finally starting to move.
No, it is. And I'll tell you, I spent 30 years in the Navy. I just retired last year. I was in the Navy JAG Corps, retired as a captain, and I was a military judge. It made a tremendous impact on my life. And I saw over time attitudes changing. I will say after 9/11, I saw certainly a shift where people were more patriotic, and then it sort of went away for a while. But it's coming back, I believe. And there's so many people out there who have not had the opportunity to serve who I think appreciate the people who step up and do serve the country in the military.
Okay, so you bring up 9/11, and I think that's a good point because since 9/11, we've had 20 years worth of fighting. We've had 20 years worth of a new crop of veterans coming home on a regular basis, and it is brought to us a level of like top of mind because we could see it again. There was a stretch where a quote unquote veteran was separated by time. Has that level of, I don't want to say putting us back at war, but has that level of reducing that time frame taken hold on all of us?
I mean, I think so. I think people grow to appreciate it more because we have been in war. I mean, we're still in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been in war continuously since 9/11. We did pull out of Afghanistan, but you know, people are coming home, and you see a lot of veterans that have been injured and have issues. And so I think there is a heightened awareness. And so I try. I've got several initiatives I've worked in the legislature to try to make it easier for veterans when they get back to Louisiana.
Let's talk about a couple of things that you've done personally, because you have taken the lead. I make no bones about it. I call on you whenever there's a veterans issue, and I'm looking for feedback or insight. What are a few of the things that you've tackled along the way?
Yeah. So last year I was really proud to pass a bill which made it for veterans or their dependents. If you want to come to college in Louisiana, you can get in-state tuition, which I think is really important because we want to attract veterans to our state, and we find the data shows if people come and go to our colleges, they're more likely to stay here and work. And so that's one thing I did to make it easier. Other states were already doing this. Mississippi was already doing it, so I thought it was important to have that in Louisiana. Another thing I did a couple of years ago, I passed the Veterans First Business Initiative. This allows you, if you're a veteran business, to register with the Department of Economic Development, your business, and people can go search for veteran-owned businesses and choose to do business with those veteran-owned businesses. And so it's a good resource to help those businesses. We've talked before about BRQ. That's a veteran-owned business.
Oh, yeah.
And then the owner of that business came and testified. He was great. He talked about how it's difficult also for veterans to find jobs. And by having this database, you can connect with veteran-owned businesses who can appreciate what you're going through.
And it is a different world altogether because it's just not something that I can wake up in the morning and understand what it's like because I have not physically walked a mile in those shoes. We've got a little bit of time under our belts with the veteran-owned, with the B2B, the network. How has that grown since it's passed?
It has grown. It's got at least I want to say over 1,000 businesses that are registered. We need to keep getting the word out though, because this is a great resource for the veteran-owned businesses, but also once again for veterans looking for a job. You know, when many of our soldiers and sailors, when they get off active duty, they come back to their home state with very little resources. They've got great training, but you don't get paid a lot of money to be in the military.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have some emotional issues, PTSD and other issues like that. So it's helpful to have this database so you can connect with a veteran-owned business. One other thing I've been working on is a job program for veterans, and it's called Melon Seed. So if you go to the Department of Veterans Affairs, this is a program where you can sign up as a veteran, and it will match you with not just veteran-owned businesses, but any businesses if you're looking for a job. And it's free for veterans, and it's free for employers. So I want to encourage anyone who has a business, if you're looking for veterans to come work for you, go to the Louisiana Department of Veteran Affairs website and sign up with Melon Seed, and it's free. It's something the department is sponsoring for our veterans.
Just for clarification's purposes, is this any veteran-owned business or anyone who owns a business?
No, anyone that owns a
Okay.
business. It's free for a job seeker who is a veteran. But as far as businesses, we want anyone to sign up. And in fact, I talked to several owners of big businesses here, and they say, "Look, we love veterans. We want to hire veterans. We don't know where to find them." It's they go to the bases sometimes to do recruiting, but a lot of times the veterans who might be at Barksdale here, they may go home to Washington State. So this is an app, Melon Seed. If you're an employer, it's absolutely free. Go sign up, and this will allow veterans to go and find employment with your company.
Last week we had Hiller Moore on the show. We were talking about the Veterans Court is on its way. This is going to come to fruition. This is going to be a reality in the early parts of next year. This is something that you've taken a look at before. How familiar are you with where it's at right now?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I actually handled that bill. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago to actually put it in place where courts could do it if they had the funding available. And now we're seeing it come to fruition. I was at a meeting the other day where I think Judge Ron Johnson spoke, and I think he's going to take the lead to get this set up in our parish. And what it is once again, if a veteran gets in trouble, it's a specialized court to try to work with the veteran and get mentors from the community to work with the veteran to try to rehabilitate them and let them try to get them out of trouble.
We're talking with State Senator Franklin Foyle about Veterans Affairs. Last week was Veterans Day, was on Friday. There was a number of events all week long. I can only hope that's going to continue to grow. Not to sound Pollyanna about it, but it felt right. It felt like, okay, this is where we should be, or at least should be headed. Are you seeing more and more feedback from more and more areas of the community that would lend towards that momentum keeping up?
I am. You see more recognition. In fact, one of the groups that I'm associated with and my wife's associated with is Blue Star Moms. They bring a real awareness to people who have had dependents and loved ones served in the military. And so there is an appreciation that I see out there, and it's heartwarming to see it.
We're going to get to where we go next in just a little bit, but it seems like every step along the way that we take, it feels like it's revealing other layers that are still out there. What are a few of the biggest needs right now?
Well, once again, job training, employment opportunities, and that's what we're working on, those areas, I think.
Now, when it comes to needs, there's the next question is what's tangible. So let's get around to what's tangible, which would bring us to what's next. Where are you going after next?
Well, I want to continue to improve on the Melon Seed program and my Veterans First Business Initiative program. I think we want to do whatever we can to help our veterans when they get back to our state to find jobs, and we want to recruit or have our veterans want to come back to Louisiana. I think that's important, and we want to make them feel welcome. You know, if you think about it, in our country, less than 1% of our citizens are in the military, yet they defend 400 million people, which is just mind-boggling when you think of those numbers.
That is insane. Do you have numbers on Louisiana? Not that it puts you on the spot, but
I did. I can tell you this: Louisiana is either the highest or in the top 5 per capita of people who've served in the military. I mean, we are very patriotic and have a rich tradition in our state of military service.
Debbie says over on Facebook, older vets from outlying areas have trouble getting transportation to New Orleans for appointments. And that is one of the concerns we've seen come up a number of times. How feasible would getting something like help in that regard be?
Yeah, and she raises a good point because the VA hospital is in New Orleans. And if you rely on the VA for your health care, that's something that we can look at. And I welcome that suggestion. And that's something I may look at the next session.
Yeah, I mean, it's because our veterans come from all over the state. And, New Orleans is not exactly centered, to be sure.
And of course, I have no control at the state level over where the VA facilities are placed. But if we can certainly do things at the state level to make it easier for veterans to access those services that are available.
Are you finding more allies over at the state capitol to hop on board with these bills as time wears on? And if so, who needs a shout out?
I don't know if I'd say more allies, but anytime I bring a veteran issue, there are always people who are helpful and willing to help out with the veterans. People always get behind these initiatives. In the House, Representative Kenny Cox, he's a retired veteran. In the Senate, Stuart Cathy, he's actually actively serving. He and I were the only people in the Senate this term who were actually serving in the military in the reserve capacity. I've since retired. Senator Cathy still serves in the Army.
Talk with State Senator Franklin Foyle for just a couple more minutes. Not to make this 100% veterans, but want to get your takeaways from last Tuesday as we had midterm elections roll through. What were a few of the things that jumped out at you?
Well, I was surprised because I was listening to all the predictions and pollsters, and I did believe that the Republicans would have done better. I thought they certainly would have easily taken the House and potentially taken the Senate. It didn't work out that way, which goes back to really my thinking and what a lot of the polls said. All the races were close. If you looked at the races individually, we're a 50-50 country, I think, at this point, and we're just going to have to work out the differences. But it doesn't look like you're going to have one party rule.
One of the things that Congressman Graves says often on this show is we spend 90% of our time on the 10% of things we disagree with. I see that a lot less at the state capitol where you work than I do on the national level. But it feels like it's such an unhealthy place for us to be.
Yeah, I think you're right, and part of it may be because you have people who they don't have term limits. I think that's something that helps. People are not always worrying about reelection forever, so that's part of it. And so people will come up with issues just to fight and make headlines, really. Yeah. But you're right. Most of the hard work you don't hear about because it's not as exciting or doesn't make the headlines.
Talk with State Senator Franklin Foyle for about 2.5-3 more minutes here. Senator Foyle, before we get you out of here, and we're covering Veterans Affairs. So, great example right here within this segment is, we have Debbie post up on the Facebook feed about a suggestion. Where should folks normally go with their suggestions about veterans bills? I think not just the traditional, contact your representative, but are there outlets out there that make this a lot more streamlined?
Well, actually, I think really you should contact your legislator. My email address is foilf@legis.la.gov, foilf@legis.la.gov. Send me an email or call my office if you have ideas, or call your local legislator as well. Also call Department of Veterans Affairs. Colonel Joey Strickland's the secretary. He's a Vietnam vet. He's very active and understands the needs of veterans. So these ideas that you have, let us know. Reach out to us.
The out-of-state tuition thing, I think, is going to become very, very big because the more veterans we see return home, the more that are coming back from Afghanistan, or like you said, we're still in Iraq. It's an entire new generation that's going to have an entirely new set of challenges. But among those is going to be what's next. That's always been a big problem, is what's next once you get back.
Yeah, and so that's why that was so important to me. In fact, real-life example, one of my colleagues, who was a military judge from Pennsylvania, was looking around at other states to send his children, and he said, I see some of the other southern states give veterans a break. Why doesn't Louisiana have that? And I said, well, that's a great idea. So we have it now, and he's sending one of his children actually attends LSU. She's from Pennsylvania, but came on the Veterans Benefit Program.
Would that be all of the LSU universities or all the four-year universities within the state, or just one system?
Yeah, it's in statute now, so it's any college in Louisiana will offer a veteran or their dependent, if they're eligible for the GI Bill, in-state tuition.
Very cool to see. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because when you recruit folks to the state for college, I mean, how many of them just become Louisiana residents on the back end after that? And
that's why I think it's so important. And you see it with the TOPS program, too. It's another thing I'm a big believer in, trying to keep Louisiana citizens here and recruiting top-notch people from out of state to come here, because we find if people go to college here, there's a very good chance that they will settle down here, get a job, get married, and have a family in Louisiana.
And just stay. I mean, like I moved to Baton Rouge to go to LSU, and I just stayed. I mean, I was a Louisiana resident before that, but, you make this place your home. In the meanwhile, we always appreciate the time and the insight and the hard work towards our veterans. State Senator Franklin Foyle, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. My pleasure.
Absolutely. Now, when you're recruiting veterans to come for college, get them to stay.